When we think about the word date, we speak about, well, we think about intentional time spent with someone else. It could be your partner, it could be your group of friends or your bestie. Sometimes you can even go on a date with a parent or a child just to spend some intentional time with them. But alone for most of us sometimes means we're lonely. But actually, you can be alone and never lonely. That's the essence of the solo date. These are intentional escapes into your own world where the noise of everyday life and the space to listen to yourself takes center stage. And that's what we're speaking about this morning on The Move. The magic of the solo date. What does it mean? How is it from, hey, I'm hungry, I'm grabbing a bite, to it actually being a date? And how, that carving out time to bring back time just for yourself, to engage with yourself, and why that's important. Joining us on this one is dating coach Dudu Nhlabathi-Madonsela. Thank you so much, Dudu, for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat to you. And I love that we're speaking about this because, you are a dating coach. And when we think about solo dates, we think about it being about you and somebody else. Why is it important to take ourselves on a date?
It's it's just learning, not just learning. Maybe the being clear in terms of why it's important to be able to have a connection with yourself. So usually when we meet people and we interact with people, we project so much of ourselves onto others, and we don't understand why we are projecting or even what we are projecting. And what happens is that when you spend time alone and you are able to reflect on your decisions, your choices, and where they stem from and what's driving this behavior, you're able to have context in terms of how you come across to others, how you impact others, and also your expectations of others in terms of what are they informed by. And it helps you understand yourself, have the right conversation with yourself so that you can come across as a better person to others. So ultimately, if you are able to be comfortable with yourself, to be kind, to afford yourself grace, to be compassionate with yourself, you'll be able to do that for others. And generally, people who have a good relationship with themselves are able to have a good relationship with others. So solo dates are absolutely, absolutely important because you're learning how to treat yourself, to be kind to yourself, and you'll be able to articulate that in a healthy manner to somebody else as to how you want to be treated.
Yeah, did you? That's so good, And I go to a lot of solo dates as a guy. I love solo dates. One of my favorite things. I do it once a month where I just escape. Maybe now and then I'll take a chance and go twice or three times a month, depending on what I love to do, right? Why I go to solo dates as well is the reason that there's certain things that, I know that the significant other probably doesn't enjoy, or there's just moments where I just want to do things on my own. It has nothing to do
Yes.
with anyone else, right? It's not like I'm trying to be this better person, but it's just I want to do this on my own because everything else has everyone else in it. And I think that's one of the greatest opportunities to do solo dates, to do something just for yourself and by yourself. And I know sometimes there'll be people, I've got a restaurant I go to and I sit at a particular corner and there's people who give me these strange looks like, shame, look at him, all alone.
Poor
He's a
lonely
poor
guy.
lonely guy. His date didn't make it. But that's the culture we live in. We think everything
Yeah.
needs to be done because someone else is there or for someone else. And sometimes it has nothing to do with that.
Yes. It definitely doesn't. But we also have to just understand why human beings behave the way they behave, right? So, most of the time we are uncomfortable with silence. We are uncomfortable with our own silence and we are uncomfortable with the silence of other people. For us, when there is no silence, where there is interaction, where there's noise or there's communication of some sort, a person feels comfortable in knowing that at least the person is giving me an indication of what they are feeling. And it also is the same with us, whereby our loneliness is uncomfortable because our loneliness then forces us to explore our feelings. So that's why people find it absolutely weird that you could be so comfortable in your own silence. And you could be comfortable with just confronting some of the demons that you have or some of the things you need to think about. That this is probably the reason why you get strange looks.
Yeah. Let's speak a little bit about intention, which I think can separate any type of, time with yourself or just alone, that loneliness from just being alone and enjoying your own company. What is the difference between a solo date and perhaps you just left work, you're hungry and you're just going to grab a bite? You could just be there to eat, but you don't have the intention behind it being a date. So how do you set that intention to create a solo date than just going somewhere and just finding yourself being there alone?
Do you know there's a big word these days that's a buzzword and it's around regulating your nervous system. And I absolutely love it. Because I think when you ask about intention, it's about, do I want to actually connect with myself? Because ultimately, I just want to create a space where I feel safe within myself. And that's what ultimately regulating your nervous system is. So I think if you want to make to know the difference between, I just happened to be there and nobody else was there, or actually happened to be there because intentionally I made time for this. The difference between it is that the things that you intentionally make time for are the things that you are using to connect with yourself, and usually they contribute positively to your nervous system. So the intention is important, but I think when we think about intention, because there's some extroverts, I am a deep extrovert, right? And I'm married to an introvert. And what happens is that, most of the time when things are positioned as spending time with yourself, they're very much a lot aligned with the introverted nature of people, right? Go and have a silent walk or do this and so forth. And if you're a deep extrovert like me, those things can tend to be frustrating and you would drop them because you think that solo dates just don't work for me because
Yeah.
there's no interaction with
So
others.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, if you're an extrovert, there are things. You could go to a music concert on your own, right? You could go and do things intentionally for you where there is a buzz of people. There's other people around you. It's just that you don't know them. You won't necessarily always have somebody to engage in a conversation with, but the energy is as such that it's the energy that accommodates an extrovert. So I think also when somebody's listening to this and thinking about solo dates, don't only think about it as a retreat of some sort
Yeah.
or something whereby it's only just you and your loud thoughts, but it could be amongst other people or in other spaces where there is movement, and socialization, but you're intentional that you just are showing up there, especially for yourself.
Dude, I'm hearing the birds there in the background wherever you are. And I'm like, I want that solo date wherever you are, right?
Well, it's just my house and it's just full of birds, but I deliberately designed a garden to attract them.
Okay, I'm coming there for my solo date. I won't bother you and your husband and kids. Don't worry. Anyway, I'm kidding. The thing about it is that I love the fact that you're saying it works for all personalities because, like you say, we think it's for the introverted and not for the extroverted, right? And also, depending on the activity, I think it's something that you just have to select in terms of what you want and how you want to curate that solo date experience. But other people then start getting onto their phones and showing everyone else, I'm on the solo date and this is my experience. And then everyone else is going to be part of the solo date and it's no longer a solo date. I want us to speak about the possible disruptions of what a solo date could be, right? Because the word solo is the focus here. And at times you can then create your own disruptions while you're trying to create that self moment, right? But we'll look at that after our break. We're speaking to our guest, Dudu Nhlabathi-Madonsela, a dating coach. You know that you can just go out by yourself and just do whatever you want to do. Let us know if you think this is a bit weird or you're like, yeah, this is a thing that we can do. +2783 288 6684. We'd love to hear from you right here on Channel Africa on our WhatsApp number.
All Scholar transport operators are required to comply with the following mandatory requirements: a valid operating license authorizing the operator to transport passengers on the specified route, a valid operator disc, which must be clearly displayed on the windscreen next to the vehicle license disc, a valid vehicle registration with a current roadworthy certificate confirming that the vehicle is fit, safe, and legally permitted to operate on public roads. Compliance must be reflected on the vehicle license disc. Compliance with these requirements is non-negotiable and is enforced to safeguard the lives of learners and all road users. Issued by the National Department of Transport.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So yeah, that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views.
Share your opinion.
Engage with a community that values your perspective.
Follow us on our social media.
Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za
And get ready to share your views.
on Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo
On the move.
Hey, most of the time we get that guilt feeling, right? We think we have to monetize everything, or we have to involve everyone in most of our activities, right? Whether it's gardening, whether it's just going out on your own and finding a good restaurant, or just reading, finding an activity that you love, just doing it at least a couple of times in a month by yourself. And then you can just say, hey, I'm solo dating. This is the moment for myself, and I want to have that experience with myself. It doesn't have to be introverted. It doesn't have to be an extroverted experience. It can be however you want it to be. We're speaking about this with our guest, Dudu, a dating coach, and she's joining us on our live stream as well as us here in our studio. So at Channel Africa 1, you can find us on our YouTube page there. Dudu, you know, I find myself in the same traps. I'm not like you. I'm not extroverted. I'm very introverted. So what happens is that I'll go to a quiet spot and find something to actually do. But then I'll end up with my phone, and then I'll be taking pictures, and then I'll be posting, I'm on a solo date. And I kind of like reminded myself, like, I don't have to announce it. It's just a date. And everyone is kind of tired of me telling them I'm on a solo date, I guess, because no one responds, right? So maybe I'm trying to make myself, feel better. But there are distractions to solo dates. We spoke about intentions. What do you think are the possible distractions of not getting the mileage you need from that experience?
So we live in an incredibly loud world, and also a world that is designed to distract you, to get the most of your attention, be it its advertisers, its technology, its social media interactions. So I'm not surprised that, you know, when people embark on the solo date journey, they tend to have distractions, and you have to just be deliberate around how you want to minimize those distractions. You could set a do not disturb time limit for the 4 hours that you're on a solo date. I mean, some people are parents, they have kids, they have, you know, they mixed of kins to people. So, you mean, you could be like, I'm just, only the important calls are going to come in. If you can afford to leave your phone at home, that's great, you know, leave your phone at home. And I think the whole idea is, let's not to be too prescriptive around what a solo date is. You know, one of the things I find, especially around young people these days, is that we seek perfection. You know, people just seek perfection. They're too prescriptive about how their lives should be. And when they start something, because it doesn't represent that perfection that's either been painted by them or social media, they give up on it easily. Initially, when you go on these solo dates, you are going to be distracted because, you know, like I say, we live in an incredibly loud world where silence is something that's very unfamiliar to people. But as you get into it and, you know, you get used to going on these dates, you're going to find a rhythm, and you're going to find what works for you in terms of, how do I minimize the distractions? Maybe, you know, I don't take calls, or maybe I log out of all my social media platforms, and all these beautiful pictures and the experiences that I'm capturing, I'll only share it afterwards. But I think people mustn't be too hard on themselves if initially they're unable to manage the distractions the way they want to. It's just being about aware of the distractions and putting a management plan that works for you in terms of how you're going to manage these distractions.
You know, Tutu, there's this thing where we think that a date has to always do with a restaurant and food. We do it in our relationships, and we also do it on solo dates. So when we say solo date, many people just imagine, hey, you're going to a restaurant alone. But a date can look like so many things, especially if you really understand the things that you like and the things that bring you peace. How can we make it intentional to be sure that, or deliberate, to be sure that you create an environment for your solo date that works best for you? Because sometimes you don't even have the money for a restaurant, right? Even if you like restaurants, but you still want to have the solo date. Me personally, I like to make my solo dates art days because I am, quite creative. So I buy myself a canvas. It's quite cheap, some water paint, and I sit there and I make myself a little cheese board, and I, sit there and paint for hours just by myself. How can we make sure that we're creating moments, not just, restaurant moments? It could be that if you're inclined to that, but how do you make sure this is personal to you?
So it's about self-awareness. I think the starting point is people taking time off to say, who am I and what really, really makes me happy? Like I said, we live in a world that's incredibly loud. You're influenced by so many things. And it's looking at the things that either you put on your vision board or you say, I like this, I'm working towards this, and ask yourself, to what degree is this really, really things that I'm really into, or my desires, or this is what the rest of the world says I should be into? And I think if you can narrow it down to what really, really works for you, then you can be able to say, if I had to spend 5 hours of my time, because time is precious. So if you're going to spend 5 hours on a solo date, make sure that it's worthwhile and it's worthwhile for you. So if I had to spend this amount of time just entertaining myself or, connecting with myself or whatever it is, what would be really, really, really meaningful to me? What would really, really make me happy? And based on that list that you would have compiled of, this is me, this is who I am. Like I said, I am an extrovert, so for me, going to the ballet is frustrating because they're just dancing and no one's talking. So that's the other day, my husband took me to the ballet and I struggled so much because no one was talking. But because, so I wouldn't necessarily pick that on a solo date because it doesn't work for me. But because I understand myself, probably it's outdoor in a space where, this movement, there's people's
Mapiano,
voices.
nyana.
So, weird enough, I'm not a big piano person.
I'm joking. I'm just
Plus,
teasing
I'm
you.
also 44, so there are other things that just give me a headache out there. So basically, what I'm saying is that once you fully understand yourself, and we because we are on social media, and right now the big talk is about regulating your nervous system, self-awareness, self-love. We think it's such an easy thing, but actually, if one day people had to sit down and say, when you ask the question, what do you really, really want? And why do you want it, right? That's actually a big task. And for me, the most important thing is people must start there and take as long as you want. If it takes you a month to figure out what is it that you really, really want. And sometimes you have to experience different things to be able to pin down what you really, really want.
Sure.
Because you might think, I want this, but once you start experiencing it, you're like, actually, I want the underlying feeling that comes with this. This is not what I really, really want. And so it is okay also in terms of if you set the intention and the intention doesn't work the way you want it to work, it's okay because of the fact that that's part
Sure.
of the self-discovery and it will make you happy.
All right. This has been a fun conversation. Just briefly, is solo dating for everyone?
I think in some shape or form, yes. I think
Okay.
the people must take time off for themselves. It is important. We live in a very stressful world. And if you do that more often, you'll see you'll be a happier person.
All right, Dudu, where do we get hold of you and get into some of this wonderful advice that you have for us when it comes to the dating world?
And I'm the peaceful one on most social media, and I run master classes, and I promise I come in some form of shape, and in some shape or form in peace.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dudu, for giving us this wonderful conversation. That's our guest helping us on this one. Solo dating is something that you would do. +27 832 88 We'd love to know from you. Or do you think it's just weird, guys? No. I'm not going out alone on a date. No. Maybe you no. know what? Let me give it a try.
Bazothina bantu.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, that's Dudu Nhlabathi-Madonsela, a dating coach, joining us on that one. It's 9:30 right on the dot, Central African time. Let's get to the latest sports.